The Galactic Empire had ruled the known universe for millennia. A network of interstellar dominions stretched from the barren moons of distant systems to the lush, verdant planets at the galaxy's core. The Empire, an insidious, vast, and unrelenting force, had consumed civilizations, erased cultures, and forced entire species into submission. They had no equal, none that could stand against their fleet, their might, and their influence. Or so they thought. It began as a whisper among the stars, something so faint that even the most advanced detection systems of the Empire barely picked it up. In the outer reaches of the quadrant, an anomaly appeared. It wasn't a weapon, nor was it a fleet. It was something far worse. Humanity. The first warning came when a small scout ship, unmarked and unknown, drifted through the Empire's outer sector. The ship, designated TALON-7 by the Galactic Fleet, was nothing more than a single, rusted vessel, a relic from a forgotten war. Its distress signal pinged for days before any response came, and when it did, it was from one of the Empire's fleet of elite warships, the Vindicator. The ship's commander, a seasoned warlord known as Admiral Norin, had anticipated little resistance as he cruised toward the rogue vessel. But when he reached it, he found only a single message. A message that would change everything. The signal that echoed through the Vindicator's comm systems was simple, unremarkable in its wording, yet profound in its implications. The message contained nothing but coordinates, a string of numbers that, to the untrained eye, seemed like little more than celestial coordinates. But Norin wasn't untrained. He had heard the rumors, the legends, and he understood what it meant. The message read, "To the Galactic Empire. We are coming. Prepare for extinction." The message was signed with only one word: humanity. The Empire's leaders laughed when the first reports came in. The idea that this humanity could possibly be a threat was laughable. They were a primitive species, a blip in the galactic history that had barely crawled out of their solar system when the Empire had already colonized thousands of planets. They had heard the stories, rumors of a race called humans who had, long ago, defeated an invading alien force. But that had been hundreds of years ago, and there was no real evidence to suggest humanity had ever been anything more than a fleeting, almost irrelevant species in galactic terms. Yet, there was one truth that made even the most hardened leaders uneasy: the message. It wasn't a plea for help. It wasn't a threat from some backwater world begging for mercy. It was cold, confident, and terrifyingly simple. The Empire had underestimated something, or rather, someone. They had never expected to face an enemy who would so boldly challenge their dominance. As the days turned into weeks, the fleet of the Empire continued its usual operations. But something shifted. The Outer Rim, which had long been untouched by the Empire's iron rule, was beginning to stir. The Empire sent scouts to investigate. They found nothing, just the quiet of deep space, where the usual mess of pirate fleets and unknown anomalies should have been. Then came the first major clue. It was an uncharted system, located on the very edge of Empire-controlled space. A deep space probe had been dispatched to survey the region, and what it found was beyond anything the Empire could have expected. A fleet, not just any fleet, but one so vast that even the most seasoned officers of the Empire's Imperial Navy were left speechless. And the strangest thing about this fleet was that it didn't belong to any known species. There were no familiar insignias, no identifiable flags of allegiance. It was an armada unlike anything seen before, ships of strange design, but built for one thing: war. And it was moving toward the heart of the Empire. Admiral Norin watched the fleet from the command deck of his warship, the Vindicator. The system was quiet now, but his crew had begun to grow restless. Rumors had spread through the ranks that humanity's fleet was not only real but vast beyond comprehension. The preliminary scans revealed ships that looked like they had come from an ancient era, yet modernized with technology beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. And there was one other thing, something that chilled even Norin's experienced blood. The fleet was already in motion, and it was heading straight for the Empire. For the first time in his life, Norin felt an overwhelming sense of doubt. The Empire had conquered countless civilizations over the eons. It had obliterated fleets larger than entire star systems, crushed rebellions with ease, and wiped out entire species with its devastating technology. What could possibly stand against such power? But this was different. There were no known races behind this fleet. No invaders from distant corners of the galaxy. The ships were strangely familiar, yet impossibly advanced, as though they had evolved in tandem with the Empire's own warships but were decades ahead in technology. They were organic in design, sleek, biomechanical, as if they were alive. And yet, it wasn't just the ships that unnerved Norrin. It was the name that had echoed through the interstellar comm systems, transmitted with precision from the first human ships that had encountered the Empire's scouts. Humanity. They were real, and they were coming for the Empire. Back at the heart of the Galactic Empire, the High Command gathered. From across the galaxy, the finest minds of the Empire converged in a vast, colossal citadel that hung in orbit around the capital world of Thranis. The news had sent shockwaves through every echelon of power. A fleet of unknown origin, wielded by an ancient species thought to be extinct, had appeared. The Emperor, seated upon his dark throne in the command center, leaned forward. His eyes, dark pools of cold calculation, fixed on the reports projected before him. "We've underestimated them," the Emperor muttered, "but we will not be so foolish again. Activate the Omega Protocol. Call for reinforcements from every sector. Prepare to crush this so-called humanity before they get any closer." But as the Empire made its final preparations to confront what they assumed would be their next conquest, something began to unfold that no one had expected. The human fleet wasn't just advancing. It was already inside the Empire's borders. The Imperial fleet, the pride of the galaxy, was not enough to stop them. The humans had crossed into the heart of the Empire at impossible speed, bypassing every blockade, every defense system, every advanced weapon the Empire had designed. And there was one terrifying truth that no one could deny anymore. Humanity had arrived, and they weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to make peace. They were here for one reason and one reason only: total destruction. The Vindicator was the first to come face-to-face with the human fleet. Norrin, with his fleet arrayed in battle formation, ordered the first strike. The Empire's ships unleashed a barrage of plasma cannons, discharging enough energy to turn moons to dust. The waves of fire engulfed the human ships. But then something impossible happened. The human fleet, seemingly unharmed, responded. A massive pulse of energy erupted from the lead ship, the largest of the human vessels. And for the first time in recorded history, an entire fleet of Imperial warships lost their connection to the Central Command. Communication failed, shields collapsed, and all systems went dark. It was as if the Empire's most advanced technology had been cut off from the very fabric of space itself. Norrin's face twisted in disbelief. "What is happening?" he whispered to himself, clutching the command console. The human fleet didn't just fight with firepower. They fought with something else, something the Empire had never faced. As the darkness of space swallowed the Empire's fleet, Norrin's ship was thrust into a staggering realization. Humanity's strength was not just in their numbers or their ships. It was in something far greater, far darker. Their mastery over technology, biology, and the very laws of physics itself left the Empire reeling. And just as the final Imperial vessels began to fall back, a voice came over the comms, the voice that had haunted the Empire's greatest leaders. "This is just the beginning." The command center aboard the Vindicator was eerily silent, the usual hum of activity replaced by a suffocating quiet. Admiral Norrin stood at the bridge, his eyes locked on the viewscreen, watching as the last remnants of the Imperial fleet fell to the assault of the human ships. The pulse of energy had cut through their defenses like a blade through paper, rendering every defensive measure useless. There were no escape pods left. No counterattack was possible. The Empire's fleet was scattered, broken, and left vulnerable. But worse still, humanity's fleet was advancing relentlessly, sweeping through the heart of the Empire with terrifying precision. Admiral Norrin's fingers tightened around the armrest of his command chair. His mind raced as he tried to comprehend the scale of what was happening. The Empire, the most dominant force the galaxy had ever known, was being shattered by a race they had barely considered worth their time. A primitive species, whose technology and tactics were rudimentary by Imperial standards, had come with a vengeance unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The voice that had echoed over the comms, the chilling words, "This is just the beginning," rang in his ears. It was a promise, not a threat. "Admiral," a voice called out from the communications officer's station. "We're receiving a message from the human flagship." Norrin turned sharply, his pulse quickening. "Put it on screen." The face of a human officer appeared on the view screen. He was young, his features hardened by war but with a calm resolve that betrayed his experience. His uniform was nothing like the ornate dress of the Imperial commanders. Instead, he wore simple, practical attire, armor that looked more like something built for survival than for ceremony. "This is Admiral Thomas Raynor of the United Earth Forces," the human said, his voice deep and confident. "We are here for one reason: to end the Empire's reign of terror across the galaxy, and to ensure that nothing like it ever rises again." Norrin's heart sank. He knew who Raynor was. The human admiral had become a legend among his own people, a figure who had led countless campaigns against overwhelming odds. But what terrified him wasn't Raynor's notoriety. It was the sheer certainty in his voice. There was no hesitation, no mercy in his words. You're going to wipe us out?" Norrin's voice cracked, his pride as an Imperial officer faltering under the weight of the truth. "That's the plan," Raynor replied bluntly. "The Empire has caused enough suffering. Your reign ends today." Behind Raynor, the viewscreen flickered, showing images of the Imperial fleet's scattered remains, masses of burning ships, floating debris, and the vast emptiness of space. The image was not just a display of destruction. It was a message. Humanity was not here to conquer. They were here to erase the Empire, every last vestige of it, from existence. The lights aboard the Vindicator flickered, and Norrin looked up in alarm. "What's happening?" he demanded. "The entire fleet systems. They're going offline," one of the officers said in disbelief. "The energy pulses. They've disabled every vessel, every satellite. The Empire's tech is obsolete." Raynor's voice came through again, more distant now, but no less resolute. "We've already deployed our last pulse. Your ships, your systems, your weapons, they're all ours now. You've fought a war against species that were too weak to fight back. You've devastated worlds that were unable to defend themselves. But you're not facing that kind of enemy anymore. Humanity has learned, adapted, and evolved. We've become something you can't understand, because we've done the one thing you never could." "What's that?" Norrin demanded, feeling his confidence crack further under the weight of the human admiral's words. "We've become the greatest weapon in the galaxy," Raynor replied coldly. "And we've done it by learning from our mistakes, by uniting against the tyranny of those who would control others through fear. The Empire's arrogance has been its downfall." Norrin's vision blurred. He had always believed the Empire was invincible. Its reach too vast, its influence too strong. The Imperial fleet was considered an unstoppable force, a galaxy-spanning network of destruction. And yet, within a matter of weeks, humanity had laid waste to it with unrelenting fury. "You're not invincible," Raynor's voice cut through Norrin's spiraling thoughts. "You're just the last of the old breed, dying, irrelevant, doomed to become dust." The finality in his words struck like a hammer. The hum of the Vindicator's systems dimmed and then ceased altogether. The lights went out, leaving Norrin in darkness. A sharp, terrifying realization pierced Norrin's mind. The Empire was no more. In the heart of the galaxy, the Imperial capital, Thranis, now lay exposed. The Empire's leadership, once spread across countless systems and ruling with unquestioned dominance, was scattered and broken. The Emperor, too, faced the inevitable end. His once mighty fleets lay in ruins. His advisors, his generals, the entire war machine the Empire had built, were all reduced to little more than space debris. Raynor's fleet made its way through the capital's defenses with chilling ease. The human ships, now unopposed, swarmed the world, their weapons still and silent as the Imperial defenses fell away. The Emperor, trapped within his palatial citadel, stood at the window, staring out over the decimated world he had once ruled. His fingers curled into fists. The thought of the Empire's collapse was unbearable, but there was no denying the truth. "Is this the end?" he muttered to himself. He had built an empire that spanned the galaxy. He had crushed countless worlds, extinguished rebellions, and brought entire species to their knees. But none of that mattered anymore. The human fleet was now in his orbit, and it was coming for him. "End it," the Emperor whispered to the room, his voice broken. And so, with the fall of the Emperor, so too fell the last remnants of the Galactic Empire. Admiral Raynor stood at the helm of his Florida G ship, watching as the final Imperial warship disintegrated in a fiery explosion on the viewscreen. There was no triumph in his eyes, no celebration. The battle was over, the war was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. Raynor looked around the bridge. His crew, human and allied species alike, were silent. Their task was not one of conquest. It was one of survival. The Empire had been the disease, and humanity had been the cure. They had been driven by a simple truth: tyranny could not be allowed to continue. In the end, the Empire's own hubris had been its undoing. The galaxy was changing. No longer would it be divided by fear and oppression. It would be shaped by those who understood the value of life, of unity, and of the strength that came from standing together. Humanity's fleet was a symbol now, a symbol of hope for every species under the boot of the Empire. And though their victory was hard-won, they knew that the true work was just beginning. The final message from Raynor echoed through the communication system, broadcasted to every corner of the galaxy. We are humanity. We fight not to conquer, but to ensure that tyranny never rises again. The Empire is no more, and we will protect this galaxy from the shadows of the past. The voice of a new era, a new dawn. And with that, the final remnants of the Galactic Empire faded into history. The galaxy was free,